So I wanted to talk a little bit about the first 6 years of my childhood, the part of the childhood story that I didn't get into in the Genesis story. Well, in the Genesis story, I basically started in White Salmon. We just moved from Salem to White Salmon, and I started in the second grade. But those first 6 or 7 years were really interesting. My birth mother, had two kids with my dad. My sister, and she's 4 years older than me, and then me. And my sister and I never grew up together because when I was born, what my parents decided to do was separate, and my mother took my sister, and my father took the son, me. And I'm nervous again. Sorry. And so I was raised by my dad, and didn't really know my sister and my mom really intimately. I would see them occasionally over the years, once in a while. So I guess that's what I'm trying to say, is that it was a kind of a casual relationship with the parents. They were what you might say called hippies, and so I kind of lived in a hippie world as I was growing up in my first 6 years in Oregon. For example, in my first year, when my dad got me, he was still in college, and so I spent my first year and my first birthday in a college dorm room. And then I had some pretty interesting experiences that I think helped my autism a lot when I was later, when I was a older child and a young adult. I think the early development of these 6 years are important because of how they possibly helped my autism. Because what I had going on, what I experienced was constant flux, constant agitation. I wasn't settled, at all. It wasn't like I had a house that I would call home and a quiet nursery that I was living in for a few years to learn about my environment that way. Not for me. I learned about my environment in a college dorm room with, I don't have the memories, but I can only imagine, what that would have been like. The experiences, the smells, the sounds, possibly, all the movement and agitation, which I'm sure was hard on a kid, just anyway, and then also if you have autism. But I want to look at it from another perspective, a perspective of getting tough through trial and fire. And so I think that these early experiences helped me in the future, like I said. So what I'm getting at is this first year. The story is, the first year after we left the college, and I had my first birthday at the dorm room. Well, after that, my dad was still in college, but he had an opportunity through the school to go to Guatemala. There's a lake that borders Mexico and Guatemala. And he got a grant from the school to go down there. He wanted to go down there and check out this algae that was growing at the bottom of the lake and check it out for its chemical properties. And when he received the grant, he saved money by hitchhiking to Mexico. So he picked me up in his arms, stuck his thumb out, and literally hitchhiked down the I-5, the freeways, and got down to Mexico, where he turned it into a pleasure trip as well as a business trip, meeting friends that, for me, they're lifelong uncles and friends and aunts and people that I've known all my life now. And he would meet them. Is the fire getting a start? I started a fire a while ago. Meet them down there and, hang out. One of the things that happened to me is that because I'm still a baby, 1.5 years old maybe, when he would go off and do research or go off and do anything with his friends, he found a Guatemalan family who would take care of me. So I have these pictures of me with this family, and they're like a mom, a Guatemalan mother. I think I'm probably drinking milk from her. and I'm, hanging out. I'm sitting with her and the other kids that are hanging out. And so that experience happened to me too, where I was suckled from a loving mother who was genuinely, you know, just so authentic in her motherliness, I guess I could say. And I probably didn't want to leave that family, that mother that was in Guatemala. I think I probably wanted to stay. And so anyway, I didn't. He got me, and we came back to the United States, and my life continued. But that experience of hitchhiking to Mexico as an infant, and then all the smells and connections that I received in that experience, while discombobulating and completely in flux and chaotic, I'm positive that it helped me become confident and, a little bit more confident anyway. It become a person who felt sure in themselves about themselves. I think that this really helped me a lot. And it's almost done, but to continue, I basically came back to the United States, and then I was kind of, hopped around to family members a little bit while my dad would go off and do work and then get money, come back, and we would have sort of a steady life for a little while again. And so that continued with this flux situation where I was with many different people, usually with my grandmother. My grandmother is like my mom. I love my Grammy. She's the best. She will always be my mom person, and my grandma, and the person that I talk philosophy with and everything with. She was great. I could say and talk about anything to her. And she had some really cool friends, she just would accept anybody into her home. And so I would come to visit her, and you never know who would be there. And these people would be so interesting and maybe having troubles, but I would get to hear about that and learn about that as well, which all helped me a lot. So basically what I'm getting at is, the first 6 years of my life was not steady. I didn't have the steady home life at all. I was constantly in the car, moving around, or on the road, hitchhiking. And so this created a certain personality in me that made me think that I could figure things out on my own. Figure it out. And if you can't figure it out, then keep moving, And and that was my motto, basically.